It's time for the revenge of the top 10 unknown RPGs. So a long time ago, long before the dark ages of this channel, I did a top 10 unknown RPGs. Now, the idea of the video was to talk about top 10 really good RPGs I don't think anyone really talked about anymore, or acknowledged anymore, or only really dedicated people remember still, or talk about still. But even then, people point out that many of the titles weren't really unknown. And, I mean, like I said, the subject matter to me was to talk about top 10 unknown, really good RPGs. So, you know, I understand maybe the title for Complete Stranger is obviously maybe a bit different thought process. I think I explained that at the beginning of the video, though, that was my set idea with the list, but I could be wrong. That's a really old video. I haven't seen it in a long time, so I can't remember, obviously. But anyway, point is, that was my idea when I created that video, and this is the revenge. You want unknown, you want games you probably never heard of? Well, I can't guarantee that all these titles you've never heard of, but I think there's probably a good chance you may have not heard of one of these titles at least. So, the revenge of the top 10 unknown RPGs has came this time. Whether it's good, bad, new, old, it's a part of this list. So, let's start off. We're going to start with a Game Boy original game, Great Greed, which I did do a video back way in older days when I was trying to do kind of a sketch kind of thing. Great Greed is kind of reminiscent to like Dragon Warrior 1, where you're a solo party member in an RPG. It's a very bizarre game because it's very themed after food. It's about a guy who ends up in another dimension by Deus Ex Machina, and he gets basically driven into this world's politics of world corruption and shit. It's all food themed. It's all food themed. And it basically has a political message of pollution and environmental protection. It's very simplistic, and the translation's kind of meh, after all. It's an old Japanese game from Namco, which is kind of odd because it's actually with the really old logo. But anyway, Great Greed, if you find it cheap, it can be a little interesting, but it's not like any really hard in-depth RPG. Not something I've ever heard anyone ever talk about. The only reason I actually got this is I found it at a store randomly, and I looked it up on my phone, and, well, I saw it was RPG, so I was like, yoink. I've never heard anyone talk about it before. Ever. So, we'll see if that. Now, this is the only Square Enix, or Squaresoft game on this list. It's probably the most likely candidate of a game that you probably never heard of from their library. But some people do know of it, and I did a Let's Play of it and a video of it, so most people can probably already guess from that information that Squire's Tom Sawyer, an RPG based off Tom Sawyer, and it was indeed by Squaresoft. And the music was by Nobuo Uematsu, which is really odd. I did a full Let's Play of this game in Japanese. It was with the actual physical cart of this, using the handheld NES thing I have with the Cavordo I have from what's that game from WoB, Stack Up. So, it was a very interesting experience. It's an interesting game. Definitely, obviously, you know, still maybe a little controversial things you might notice, though. I've already mentioned my thoughts on stuff like that, and I'm not going to go into that, but, yeah, you know, keep that in mind if that kind of thing obviously offends you, but Japan, like I said, you know, usually offends everything, including themselves, so, eh. But it's an interesting game, though. It is bizarre. It's not very equipment focused, But and it has some reminiscence of Saga's simple leveling up mechanics where you don't actually have leveling, but your stats increase. So you could even consider it somewhat of an early predecessor to that. In this game, I've only heard one person talk about, and our own very John Tickle talked about the Twisted Tales of Spike McFang, which I found a slightly damaged copy, sadly, but it was vastly cheaper, obviously, than many of the carts, and it's also very clean inside. This is a very odd action-ish RPG. I don't know really what more to say about it being very odd. It was modified to be a bit harder in the American version, which a few Super Nintendo titles like the Seventh Saga were also edited that way, which caused some issues in your progression a bit. But it's a very odd title. Hard to justify the expensive price of it. You're probably better up just saving up for Earthbound or Eve or something. I mean, if you find it cheap, though, not bad, though. Moving on. Now, here is probably one of the oldest RPGs I have that's complete. And some people might argue whether this is legitimately counted as an RPG, because I believe it doesn't technically have a level system in it. But it has the turn-based combat, item management stuff. It is called Dragon Stomper. It was for the Atari 2600's Supercharger, which was a add-on that used the tape cassettes. Yes, tape cassettes. Here, I'll show you, because I did do a video showing me when I got this. So, but yes, it is a tape cassette. It has its book and everything in that, but yeah, I know a lot of people don't usually see these. I know, like, James did a review on, like, a Superman Batman cassette game for a particular computer on that. These are a very uncommon game media item. I mean, they existed, but there weren't shitloads of games that used them. It's a very odd thing. But yes, it's a cassette game. And it's sad to think that's more powerful than the Atari cartridges in a way, kind of scary. But it is indeed has many elements of RPG mechanics, of its turn-based combat and that. But Dragon Stomper, some people say is the first RPG in a video game sense, and I'm sure there's people who are willing to argue about that, because obviously, I've said it before, I don't know the last video I've said it before in, but you must be very careful when you say so-and-so game is the first of its kind, because believe me, tons of people are quite willing to rebuttal or show evidence of things pre-existing. Like, if I had a dime for every time somebody said, you know, Resident Evil, the beginning of survival horror, and people throw out Alone in the Dark and whatever else out there to disprove said thing, you know, it's just... So, you know, always be careful with that. But it definitely is one of the oldest. It is definitely a really old RPG, and it's definitely really something that was interesting to add to my collection, even though I don't own a Supercharger. And they're also numbered. There's only a limited number of games that was released for this thing. So it was very nice, complete. I didn't pay a shitload of money for it, but it wasn't exactly, you know, $2 either. I think I paid like $30, $40 for it. So, I mean, yeah, that was probably a bit much for some people, but eh. Now here's an NES title I definitely recommend, and it also has a sequel, but it never came outside of Japan. Destiny of the Emperor, based off the whole Three Kingdoms mythology, well, not mythology, but history. Wrong terminology, but you know, the history of the Three Kingdoms war and that. This takes place during that. It had a sequel. This was made by Capcom, and it is a very Dragon Warrior party styled RPG, but it's very interesting because it also doesn't it looks like an RPG, but visually it doesn't look like a normal RPG. Basically, your party members or generals, and their HP is their military group. So, you know, let's say one guy has 4,000 HP. He has 4,000 soldiers in this battle. So it's an interesting visual difference, but I mean, really, it doesn't make you, it's like, oh look, it doesn't look anything like, it looks like an RPG, but it is slightly different in its look a bit. I do recommend this game. It's pretty fun, though it does have a few game-breaking bugs to throw out there, so be careful a bit. Some of them are quite bad, sadly, and I probably would blame the translation programming probably on that, not necessarily the original programming. Like I said, this does have a sequel. It never came out of Japan. I think it does have a translation to it, though, so you could also check that out, too. Now, here's a title I've been interested in a long time. It was one of my first complete boxes for a Super Nintendo title from Japan, Mystic Arc. Is the spiritual sequel to the 7th Saga on the Super Nintendo. Now, the 7th Saga is very notorious in America. Not so much in Japan, though, because it was modified in America to be vastly harder. While it was a much simple, casual RPG experience in Japan, it was toned up so much that there were ways you could actually break the game, and not in the good sense where you made it easier, in the sense that the game fucking became so hard. Like, one of the characters you don't choose becomes a rival character. It depends on who you choose and who you get as a party member and stuff. There's different things that relate to who ends up being the rival character here. But the rival character is scaled based on the main character's level. And they increased in the American version. So actually, by over-leveling, you can actually make your rival character actually have max stats and level and everything if you went too far, to the point where you can't do any more than like 1 damage. The game has lots of fucking flaws like that, and it's a shame because it's a very interesting game. But luckily, the Mystic Arc continues many of those interesting mechanics while increasing the party system to 3. The story is very different. It's not a very I mean, it is medievalish, but you'd have to play it. It deals with a lot of oddities. And I've never completed it. I've only briefly started a bit. And it's something I've been wanting to do a Let's Play of, because I really enjoyed the 7th Saga, even though it was a lot harder in America. A lot of people, I do know some people who know of the Mystic Arc, but not a lot of people. Now here's one that I was a little debatey about putting in this video, because like anything with Square Enix or Squaresoft, it's a part of a well-known franchise. It's a Shin Tensei title. Now you might be like, well, then it's not going to be really unknown, is it? Well, what have I told you? It was on, and it was an exclusive to Microsoft. Now it might pique your interest a little, huh? Well, Shin Tensei 9 for the original Xbox One. The real Xbox One, not the X-Bone. The Shin Tensei 9 was exclusive to the Xbox, and I've never got to play it because obviously it's not a region-free system. But I got the game obviously for a collector's sense. It's complete, great condition, excellent, very normal usually for importing. Japan takes care of its games a lot better than America. This game, though, is considered a very weak link in the franchise, so it's debatable if it's even worth playing. Last time I ever looked it up on like YouTube and shit, there was like only so few videos on it, so I don't know about now. As far as I know, there is no translation for this game or anything, or even a guide for this game. So anyone in English who doesn't know Japanese would really be on their fucking own playing this game. And oddly enough, I've wanted to play it. Interesting, 9 is most likely going to be known to any of you who played the MMO, though. Because if you were really big into the MMO, you probably learned that the MMO's concept was originally supposed to be this. This was supposed to be an MMO concept. However, it was decided to end it as this and take that concept to what it turned out to be now on the PC. Which I heard recently, actually. I don't remember when it was, but I heard recently they did shut down the American servers for it, so that's a real shame, to be honest, because I never got to really far in that game, so now I can't actually even experience its story, so that's a bit of a shame, but certainly that's the flaw with the free-to-play MMO style. But I don't know how many of you all might have known about that one. That one I just kind of threw in the whim. Now, a game I still hear nobody talk about. And it's a really good game. It's a really good game. John Tickle even appears. I really wish I had the case for this game. And I'm sure GameStop probably threw it away. Fucking pricks. But The Wizard of Oz Beyond... Come on, focus. The Wizard of Oz Beyond the Yellow Brick Road. This is an excellent RPG. And I can definitely understand how somebody could look at this and be like, yeah, no. Don't let the Wizard of Oz label, art style, and story think this is a bad game. Sure, the story's not complicated. If you're looking for a deep, emotional story, yeah, you're not gonna... This is mechanical. Mechanic-wise of gameplay. It's traditional, it's simple, it's not insanely complicated. It's a very relaxing, simplistic, turn-based, classic franchise well, not franchise, but styled game. I definitely recommend it if you can find it for a good price. And for the love of humanity, if you happen to somehow find a case, the cover art for this game, and you don't want it, let me know, please. Please. I'd love... This is one of the few DS games I'd love to have the full stuff for. It's a real shame that I can't get it. Makes me sad. Because it's a really good game. I recommend it. Xseed, I commend you for bringing it over. Because really, I bet most people, if they didn't notice your logo on there first and just saw Wizard of Oz and then continue looking at it. Because that's why I also like looking at companies. I mean, I don't think it should be the based selling point, but you know, when you see something like Wizard of Oz and then you see a Japanese company you buy a lot of games from, you're like, huh, well, I'm kind of curious now. And it's like, you know, don't judge a book by its cover, because sometimes you'll be surprising what can lie from that curiosity. Check it out if you want a turn-based classic style RPG. Now here's a game. This is an interesting piece of history in RPGs, especially in the Golden Sun. For people who don't know, Golden Sun's, the team that made the Golden Sun franchise, are the people who made the original Shining Force games and such, the original Shining games for Sega. They made pretty much all the Shining games up to the Sega CD. They might have also been involved in the Sega Sound ones. I'm not 100% sure, but I think somewhere around there was a time where they left and Sega would, you know, pursue other means. And they would go on to make Beyond the Beyond in the Golden Sun franchise and many of the Nintendo Mario sports games. Beyond the Beyond is very interesting because looking at its gameplay of Combat Net, it looks a lot like Golden Sun. But then, anyone who actually knows this game will most likely tell you it is a boring RPG not worth your time. And not to say they're wrong. I mean, it's a pretty generic RPG. But if you're a really big Golden Sun fan, or the fan of the creators of that and the original Shining Tears, not Shining... Why did I say Shining Tears? Oh my goodness. I just insulted them by saying that. Oh my goodness. The original Shining games. This might interest you a lot. While it's definitely not a breaking, revolutionized... Be honest, I really think they just looked at this game's feedback. They went, okay, what can we do to make it more interesting? Because this is kind of like Persona 3, the answer of Golden Sun. It's like... all the puzzle-solving psychic shit, it's all gone. It doesn't exist in this game. It's kind of like, you know, how they stripped the social link and the really big story aspects of Persona 3 out and made the Ansel. That's kind of how I feel like this game is towards Golden Sun, even though it obviously came before Golden Sun. But Beyond the Beyond might be something interesting for you if you're a really big fan of the creators of those games. Aside from that, I would say it's pretty generic RPG, really. But hey, I don't really hear a lot of people talk about it. Maybe you never heard of it. So now here's a game I really like. I really like this game. I've talked about it before, and I've even considered doing a Let's Play of it. Sadly, it did suffer the editing of making it harder when it was a more simplistic RPG in Japan. They increased the difficulty and the massive amounts of grinding you needed. I wouldn't compare it to as much as Seventh Saga did, but it'd probably be a bit up there. Akaja Shadow King for the PS2. A game that has a very dedicated fan base towards it, but a lot of people don't talk about it. I would call this if Tim Burton made an RPG. That's what I would call its art style, and its kind of aesthetic design of the characters. I really like that. It's very odd, too, to me, is they did do other edits, like the main character. The main character's eyes are actually vastly bigger in the Japanese version, so Sony did a lot of tweaking and changes to this game. They didn't do any, like, vastly, like, took concepts of the game out kind of things, like, you know, censored, like a gameplay mechanic or something, but they did tweak some different elements and things, and they refer to a lot of spirit demon things. They're all ghosts. Ghosts. Pretty bad. It's obvious the game deals with a lot of spirits, demons, and things of that caliber, but yet ghosts. So its translation's a little wonky, but it's a really lighthearted game with a very interesting subject matter to me. I really liked it a lot of the game's story, and in the end, it kind of left you with a lot of interesting subject matters to think about, and even a deeper plot to think about relating to the main character's father. There's a lot of interesting theories that spawned from this game's story. It's pretty interesting discussion, in my opinion. But Akaja Shadow King is a pretty unbalanced RPG in the American version. I don't know if this came out in Europe. If it didn't, it's really a shame, because I really like the aesthetic design of the game. It's very traditional RPG, and it's very reminiscent of a lot of Shin Tensei games, where if the main character dies, game over. So, you'll feel right at home on that front, too. But, I don't know what really more to say. I do recommend Akaja Shadow King. It's a game I feel deserves a lot more noteworthiness in the community. And it's a game I don't really hear a lot of people talk about. It's a really shame, because I would call it the bizarre Tim Burton Earthbound of the PS2. And a lot of people claim it's the first RPG that came out on the PS2. It actually featured the mysterious blue discs. Ooh. So, I recommend it if you can find a copy. It's really nice. I like it. And of course, I'm very glad I have a complete version. And the art book is pretty nice with a lot of nice artwork in it. Here, let me even show you. It has some sketches of artwork of monsters and such spread out throughout the booklet. And got little pictures and such. It was really nicely made, to be honest. I miss a lot of booklets like this. I mean, it's not the greatest thing in the human world, but it's definitely probably one of the nicer PS2 booklets, really. It's simple, to the point. There's a lot of weird art everywhere in it. I like it. And of course, official strategy guide advertising. No, though, I wouldn't mind getting that, to be honest. I like a lot of old guidebooks, mainly like the Super Nintendo era, loaded with artwork. But yeah, I would recommend getting that. So I think I went through everything, I believe. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, I went through everything. So I don't know if that's going to satisfy your itchiness for unknown RPGs. They're definitely what I would label as very much more unknown than the things I picked in my previous top 10 unknown RPGs. Like I said, that video focused on really good RPGs that I felt like were very, very good, that I just kind of brushed to the side. These varying varying tastes in that. Admittedly, a good number of them I like. Some of them, like the Shin Tensei 9, I've never even played because I don't have any way to play it. But I don't know anyone who's ever talked about this unless it involved the MMOs. So those are what I think are some of the unknown RPGs that aren't necessarily good that I own. So let me know, did you know all these titles existed? Did you learn of any new titles in this video? I'd love to hear. Or if again you're upset and think none of these titles are unknown, leave me a comment down below. Maybe I'll make another attempt at the revenge of the top 10 unknown RPGs. But I guess it'd be the return of the revenge in that case. Praise the sun, praise the helmet that's slightly cut off screen today, Teddy with a Luigi mask, Mario, Lords of the Fallen, which I'm still waiting in the mail, and tomorrow I get my PS4. Have a good day, and pray